That healthcare, access to primary care, a family doctor, is top of mind for New Brunswickers, especially during this election. And when I knock on doors and I ask people, what is the number one way your government can serve you better? The mass majority, of course, answer access to primary care. The other answer that I'm hearing most of all is that New Brunswickers are tired of just the back and forth, no change, same as it always was, liberal, conservative, nothing ever changes. I actually see this as sort of a Venn diagram, if you will, of why we are not getting the access to primary care we need right now in 2024. And so I just wanted to talk about that today because we want to see an improvement in primary care and we want more access to doctors. But today and tomorrow, I want to talk about, of course, the problem is we all know what the problem is, but is there a solution? And what Greens have suggested, even before election season, is that it is time to think about health care, access to primary care, as a basic right. And in order to enshrine something as a right, something like healthcare, you need to enact legislation that guarantees access to that service. When something is a basic right of any Canadian, that means it would be illegal or unconstitutional, depending on how you wanted to go with the legislation, to deny that service to a Canadian. And so David Kuhn and the Greens have been unequivocal about how it is time to consider access to primary care as a basic legal right of New Brunswickers. The fact is, 180,000 New Brunswickers do not have a family doctor, and about 20% don't have access to the primary care services that they need. And we are seeing all across this province, it takes days for New Brunswickers to get access to primary care. If you want to go to a hospital and go to emergency, wait times are upwards of 12 hours in most places. If you want to see your family doctor, if you have one at all, again, 20% of New Brunswickers do not, it will be multiple days, 3 to 5 days before you can see a doctor. And so when you think about any sort of ailment, just waiting for 3 to 5 days or going to emergency, those are your options. Now, a Canada or a New Brunswick Healthcare Act would guarantee access, and it would standardize the level of service that you can expect as a New Brunswicker. And so, what we are seeing with the deficiencies of the healthcare system, and even governments shifting around their funding, deciding how to spend it on what. I heard a statistic that we spend 6% of the Canadian budget, healthcare budget, on primary care. Jane Philpott has written a book called Healthcare for All. I really recommend you pick it up if this topic interests you. She's talking about a Canada Healthcare Act. But again, as New Brunswickers and as in the Green Party, we would say, along with Jane Philpott, there is nothing stopping the provinces from enacting their own healthcare as a human right or primary healthcare act. There is nothing. A healthcare act for a province is doable, and this is one of the things. The systemic problems we're seeing is the federal government. If you'll hear our prime minister in recent interviews, the federal government will point to the provinces as the cause or the ones to blame for a deficient healthcare system, and then of course the provinces will point right back to the federal government for various reasons. Maybe they're saying we're not getting the transfer payments or things like that. Healthcare is, you shouldn't tell us how to manage our system. What we want as New Brunswickers, and when you're going to the ballot boxes this October, remember, this is a referendum on how are we doing. And so if you vote the way you've always voted for the same parties you've always voted for, you're essentially saying, I don't expect things to change. That is the despair and the discouragement I'm hearing at the doors. The Green Party and myself, as your Saint Croix MLA, we want every New Brunswicker to have access. And the way that you kickstart that to get every New Brunswicker having access to primary care is to enshrine it in law. And when that happens, when you have a bill, when you have legislation that provides, guarantees access and the standard of care, then New Brunswickers, we will solve this problem, because we see this with education. We don't expect 80% of New Brunswick children to have access to education and teachers and schools, and 20% not to. Or if you think about municipalities, we would not accept 20% of our municipalities in New Brunswick completely inaccessible because the province did not pave roads out to those communities. Okay, so these are just examples of rights that we expect as New Brunswickers that somehow along the way we have settled for a deficient and inefficient and inadequate primary health care. It is time to say no and for a change. And so tomorrow I want to talk more about about every topic. I say the solutions are out there somewhere, and they're not far. It's not that we don't know where they are. We just need to implement them, and we need the voters to say, we've had enough of this. It is time to implement something that works. Tomorrow, I want to show you something that works. But the first step would be enshrining access to primary care as a right. That is something we can do. That's something that Greens want to do, because we want to see everyone get the care they need. Join me tomorrow.